Good evening and welcome to the July regularly scheduled meeting of the Franklin Special School District Board of Education. Before we get started and convene the meeting, two housekeeping items. Number one, as we entered the school this evening, everybody was properly screened, had our temperature checked, and asked the screening questions. We proceeded to our chairs, our seats, and now that we are properly physically distant, some of us may choose to remove our masks so that we may be able to be understood and speak. So you have that option of doing so if you like. And secondly, let's, if you would like to join me in a moment of silence or in prayer to remember our students, our parents, faculty, staff, administration, healthcare workers, and leaders in our community. Please. Thank you. The meeting is called to order. First item on the agenda, of course, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Typically at this point in the meeting, we have reserved an item for good news and awards and recognitions, but being a month during the summer, we don't have those to share this evening, so we'll double up next month when our children will hopefully be back in school. Public input. We always make time at each board meeting for members of the FSSD community to share with the board anything on their mind. Do we have anybody who would like to take advantage of public input this evening? Yes, please come to the podium and state your name and address, or I tell you just your name and you can write your address on the sheet, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
So I have two questions. So in terms of technology, since we're going to probably be real technology heavy this year.
Excuse me, can you hold the mic a little closer?
In terms of technology, since we're supposed to be we probably will be real technology heavy this year with the Chromebooks. My child is at FMS. I just want to know if the IT department is ramped up for any issues that might happen, because I know like last year she had issues with Clever, which I know is one of the apps they're going to be using. 2 of the books she could never access, and some of the other students could, so I don't know if it was just a glitch with her Chromebook or what the issue was, but that's one of the things I wanted to make sure is if they have to go to virtual from traditional, that if they have any issues, those will be promptly able to be addressed by IT. And then the second thing I wanted to know is, it was one of the other students, and I didn't ask about the teacher's name because I didn't want to know that part, but if they're in class, is there a way that the teachers can actually use their Chromebooks or whatever? I'm sure they probably are given computers as well to record at least one of the lessons during the day in the regular class, and possibly if students are in honors, and upload those like daily to Google Classroom, because in the last meeting it was stated that if a child has to go home and they're home for 2 weeks, they can't jump on the virtual track because they will have different teachers, and I think it's easier for kids to learn when they are hearing from the instructor Center, as opposed to if they're out of school, just having stuff uploaded into Google Classroom and trying to figure it out themselves.
Okay, thank you. Our description of the plan, can we address those just two topics at a high level when we go through it after a while? Okay. Anyone else would like to speak? Public input, yes.
First, I'll tell you my name is Nella McCall, and I'm a member of the community here for, say, the past 30 years. And I want to tell you my bona fides so you'll know that I feel comfortable addressing the subject matter. But before I do that, I want to say that the problems that I see and am trying to address are based on your last meeting that I watched, and maybe your plan has changed since then. So I don't mean to be overly critical. Don't mean to be critical at all, really. Just suggestions. I have a degree in early childhood education. I'm also a master's prepared nurse practitioner, and I'm also an attorney at law licensed in the state of Tennessee, but retired. So I'm not saying that to brag, but I want you to know that I do know the subject matter that we're dealing with. And also, you can tell by looking at me, I belong to one of the high-risk groups, older than dirt and pre-existing conditions. Now, I'm not going to dwell on the risk of not following the CDC guidelines. I'm not going to deal with the impossibility under the present plan, at least the one I heard the other night. And for these reasons, the physical condition and class size of the buildings and the class size and the nature of children, especially young children, they're very drippy, as you may know. The lack of funds and time for doing everything that the CDC would require us to do. And also the lack of daycare for parents whose children might fit in under one of my suggestions. But I don't want to miss the elephant in the room, and that's the lack of daycare for parents. And also the risk to teachers and families when these children come back home. So instead of focusing on that area, I want to focus on solutions, because I grew up being taught that if you weren't part of the solution, you were part of the problem. So I come with some possible solutions. One would be to delay the opening for at least 30 days. The second would be to use maybe split days or alternate days or a combination of on-site and online, whatever it took to meet the CDC guidelines. Nobody will be perfect. We won't be able to do everything exactly, but we got to come. It's our duty to come as close as we can to doing this. And the second thing would be to explore or reach out to the community and try to involve churches. I know there are one or two people at my church that we're already trying to work on maybe getting our site approved by the state for some of our rooms so that we can make them available for tutoring or daycare or after-school programs or whatever might be needed. And I think that we would have to also explore besides churches, recreation centers, and so on, we would also try to have to expedite the approval steps that you have to go to get a physical, say, a room with windows on the first floor, and egress and ingress and egress and all those kind of problems. And then next, I think we would have to seek emergency funding to increase the personnel that would be required. In fact, we need to do that for more personnel for the plan, as I understand that stands right now. And we'd have to go to the city, the state, and the federal level and make it known that we take this seriously and we want something done about it right now to protect ourselves, our children, our families, our teachers, our staff, everybody that's involved. So I'm just begging you to don't bury your head in the sand and accept second best when second best is far from what's going to be best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Okay, public input is closed. Reports, presentations, and discussions, teaching and learning. Dr. Decker.
Thank you, sir. Tonight, the Teaching and Learning Spotlight illuminates Leadership Retreat 2020. Each June, the Franklin Special Leadership Team gathers for several days to reflect upon the school year just completed, plan for the upcoming year, and deepen each member's knowledge and understanding of topics relevant to education and to leadership. Time is allocated for team building and the reading and discussion of current research. On day one of the 2020 retreat, the leadership team examined in depth and drafted plans for the scenarios for school to reopen in August. Some teaching and learning and finance and administration team members took part in gallery walks around the Moore Elementary multipurpose room with social distancing in place to view charts that displayed the plans and protocols for each scenario for the return to school. The charts were developed and presented by teaching and learning and finance and administration to address the following areas: access and attendance, health, transportation and maintenance, instruction and packets, technology and instructional technology, communications, child nutrition, and work expectations for teachers and paraprofessionals. Day two of the leadership retreat was devoted to school-specific information and professional learning. We heard from Dr. Kay Bone, former federal program supervisor, about the parameters and Franklin Special's planned use of the CARES Act Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, also known as ESSER dollars. It's federal funding through the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the purpose of which is to make learning more accessible to students with disabilities, at-risk populations, language needs, and other challenges. We heard from Safety and Attendance Supervisor Selby Glass. She provided information on social emotional concerns related to COVID-19 that may be faced both at present and when we return to school. Dr. Gina Looney and Summer Carlton provided an overview of the newly adopted English language arts textbooks and resources. Dr. Looney and myself presented a follow-up to our June 2019 session on high-quality instructional materials and the impact they have on student achievement, followed by a presentation from Josh Bracamontes, Amber Whitley, and Dr. Cindy Cook, our instructional technology specialists. Their presentation explored the high-quality materials that are available to Franklin special educators as part of our district-supported resources. Pax Weimers facilitated a review of the district improvement plan for school administrators. Drs. Roby and Looney spoke to an overview and revisit of the key components of procedures and strategies related to dyslexia, 504 plans, which are developed for students who have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more life activities, and response to instruction and intervention, also known as RTI squared. On day three, the full leadership team participated in the annual required drug-free workplace training for supervisors, and then the school teams continued to plan for the scenarios for returning to school with support from teaching and learning and finance and administration. All in all, the retreat was a valuable and productive experience during which collaboration was highly effective and goal-oriented.
Questions?
Can you just go over, I know it's in the report, but just so people can understand how we have decided to use that money that we received, the ESSER funds?
Yes, so it's being distributed amongst various uses of technology. We are going to purchase hotspots for families to have Wi-Fi access. We are going to purchase devices for our special education pre-K students. Mr. Weimers, help me remember the other pieces of that. The Chrome tablets for grades K2.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Construction report.
Included in your board packet is your monthly update of our most significant construction projects, including the latest timelines for each. And the most significant update is the guaranteed maximum price from Nabolts, which is included in the business before the board later in the agenda. Also of note, we do have a minor celebration when we finish a project. We want to say yeehaw and hallelujah, is the completion of the sidewalk that connects 96 to Del Rio Pike, which was in partnership with our good friends at the City of Franklin. We are thankful for their willingness to partner with us to get that completed in a very timely fashion. We've got that done just a few weeks after giving the go-ahead. But other than that, I'd entertain any questions you may have about these projects.
My neighborhood says thank you very much for that. They ride very well.
And it's nice too. If you haven't seen it, it's got curves, it's got some design to it. It's not just a straight sidewalk.
Other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Dr. Esslinger. Approval of the board agenda. Dr. Snowden, additions, corrections?
No changes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the board agenda? There's a motion, and Mr. Council is a second. All in favor? Thank you very much. Unanimous. Approval of the consent agenda. We have 8 items on the consent agenda. Minutes of the board meeting, June 8th. Minutes of the work session, June 15th. Minutes of the Director of Schools Performance Goals work sessions of June 23rd. Minutes of the work session on July 16th. Consolidated application approval for IDEA. Our meeting schedule for this upcoming school year, as well as our annual agenda, items to be covered during this coming year, and a budget amendment. Do I hear approval for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Thank you, Dr. Barker. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Business before the board. The first item is return to learn, the 2020 reopening of schools. Dr. Snowden?
Yes, thank you. Very few changes from the work session. We did clarify or attempt to clarify on page 20 when we talked about when the systematic review is complete. We said, I think the language was determine the next phase, and we thought that was not clear that we were talking about which instructional scenario we would be moving to at that point in time. Also, the language that said endorse the plan versus approve, those changes were made. And Dr. Decker, I'll ask you to address the concerns related to the plan and the technology.
Yes, Dr. Snowden, the first concern was around technology resources at Freedom Middle School, I believe, and access through Clever. We do have in the Return to Learn plan, we've addressed in several places that there is support that it will be ongoing with regard to if there are technology issues. Students should contact their teacher first. The teacher can then consult with the instructional technology specialist that is assigned to the appropriate grade level. We also have building level instructional technology leaders who can provide support. And this can be provided whether the student is learning in the in-person environment or in the virtual environment. Google Classroom is one of the main platforms we'll be using, whether a student is enrolled in the virtual learning environment or is, for example, home for a couple of weeks, but typically in the in-person environment. Google Classroom is sort of a hub where questions can be asked, both by students and parents. We also have in the Return to Learn plan provisions for training to be provided for parents around our digital resources. The second question or concern, I believe, was around the possibility of having teachers' lessons recorded and uploaded to Google Classroom. And I think this was in the case of, again, a student who's typically in the in-person environment for learning, but has to be home for a certain amount of time. Is that correct? Oh. Absolutely. So again, using our hub of Google Classroom and then Zoom, which will be one of our other main platforms for instruction, that's definitely something that we could look at. I would say also that the provisions that we have for virtual learning in general or online learning, if it's for a short time and the student is typically in the in-person environment, that we would have supports in place to address exactly what you were talking about. Other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Decker. Dr. Snowden, anything else?
Excuse me. What we need to be mindful of is this pandemic is always changing and changing our environment. This plan has to be fluid so that we can make changes to address whatever situation comes toward us. It's not a perfect plan, as I've said from the beginning. Every plan at this phase is an imperfect plan because it cannot address every single item that may occur and we don't really know about at this point in some cases. So I think we need, again, let's be mindful that changes will need to take place in the plan as we move forward during the year. With that said, we recommend the adoption or the approval of the Return to Learn plan 2020-2021.
Okay, thank you. I think that in the form of a motion to get on the table for discussion, the motion should include, of course, request for approval, but also granting the Director of Schools authority upon board notification to modify the plan as situation requires. So do I hear a motion to along those lines?
I'll make a motion that we approve the plan and that we give the Director of Schools any leeway he needs in order to keep the plan fluid for our students.
Upon notification to the board?
Upon notification of the board.
Okay. All right. Second. Mr. Blair is a second. Okay. Board discussion.
Tim, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Snowden and the team. This was hundreds and hundreds of hours that they put in for this, and as he said, no plan is perfect, but I feel like our students are set up for success, and I'm very grateful for that.
I had a question. When do we think, or is it already up, that we'll have the FAQs for parents? And when is the deadline again for parents to decide if they want to enroll in virtual learning? And then my last question is, I guess after that we'll have a better idea of how many students we'll have in the building if we're able to be in the building. And then is that when we'll set up class sizes and things like that?
The first question, we worked tirelessly today on frequently asked questions that we had been asked. We also developed our own questions that we think parents would have an interest, employees would have an interest. So we anticipate being able to have those available tomorrow. We also anticipate, or we do have, ready to go out to first thing tomorrow after the board approve, if the board approves the plan. And that will be the sign up if you're choosing virtual. It would also have a parent agreement. And then once we have a count of where students are zoned and which students at that zone school will become virtual, then we can develop the personnel plan to address those that will be virtual and then those students that we anticipate to be in person.
Any more discussion? Comments, questions?
I would like to just say that I know we've all received many emails, and I want people to know we have read them and believe the questions will be answered in the frequently answered questions section of our website. I know I've received many articles about sending kids back to school and the importance of kids being in the building, and I want to reiterate that I think we all believe that as well. We want our students to be in school. We know children need to be in school. We've seen the science that says they can be in school, but we also have to do it safely. So I appreciate the work put in the plan. I think we're ready, and we'll just have to see how things develop over the next couple of weeks.
Is there a time frame to sign up for the virtual?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was asked, and I didn't address that. We're asking so that it would give us enough time or ample time to make decisions related to personnel. We're asking that those decisions be made by this Friday. I know that's not a lot of time, but I think people have been thinking about it, and hopefully once they see that agreement and have gone through the plan related to virtual learning, that they would be able to make that decision by this Friday.
Last question. Do we feel confident, which I'm sure we do, but I just want to ask it, that by that point and then until the first day of school, we feel we'll have enough time for our teachers to be ready, our staff to be ready to start school on the date that we've planned?
We think so. Obviously, we have all our devices, our one-to-one devices. If we have to go virtual, the issue that we're facing now is those K2 Google devices are not, we don't have a case or a protective cover for them yet. They were back ordered. So that could cause a little bit of a delay, but our teachers have been going through training. I'm not saying they're perfectly trained, but I do think, or I do believe, that we're in much better shape as far as being able to teach virtually now than we were at the extended closure that occurred in March. But again, it's going to continue. This is going to be a work in progress. We've not done this before. No other school district, I guess, has faced this, but we do think with the training and the support that our teachers will be up to the task.
Okay, I do have one question, and I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to ask more for attention to the issue. Right now, is it true that we have no leeway granted as far as the days of instruction or testing by the state?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Is that something that we think can change with talking to our representatives and sending Lee himself communications?
I know the legislative body is coming back into session within the next couple of weeks, I believe. I think that those questions will be asked, and I don't know, obviously, how they will address those questions. There's been a rumor that if they shorten the number of days, then they would also shorten the amount of money that's being sent to school districts, and so that's something that no school district would want to see. In other words, the BEP is based on 180 or equivalent days of instruction. So if they take it and say that you can only attend, that you may attend 170 days or whatever number, and if they use the ratio and take that amount of money away per day, I think it would be pretty devastating to some school districts. Now, I've not seen that in writing. That's strictly what one of the rumors that's going around, I guess.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, discussion? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the Return to Learn 2020 plan with granting the director, upon notification to the board, flexibility to modify as the situation requires. We have a second, and we can do a roll call vote on this if you like. Let's start here on this end. Mr. Townsend?
Kevin Townsend, yes.
Robin Newman, yes.
Tim Stillings, yes.
Robert Blair, yes.
Alina Bell, yes.
Alicia Barker, yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Resolution for emergency suspension of board policies for the upcoming school year.
Yes, this resolution is meant to cover any deviations in certain board policies as our reopening plans may have conflicts with those policies for a time period. The waiver of any board policies that are effective will only be effective if the continuous learning plan is necessary to be implemented. Policies that could potentially conflict with various aspects of school reopening plans may include, but are not exclusive of those that specify calendar operations, school board meetings, our school day and emergency closings, attendance, and the community use of facilities. We recommend adopting this resolution.
Okay, thank you. Typically, we read a resolution that's presented, but it's in our board packet. Does anyone feel the need to have this read out loud? Okay, great. Do I hear a motion? Motion to approve. Mr. Blair and Dr. Barker, second. Discussion? No discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Typically, this July board meeting is every year consumed by budget discussions. I've never seen a board agenda for July that had the budget as the third item on the agenda. So, Dr. Snowden.
Thank you. Provided for our meeting are the final general purpose budget and debt service documents, including the budget summary and complete revenues and expenditures. During the budget work session, much was accomplished through great questions and discussions by the board. We're very appreciative of all your work that you did over the last few months. I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize the work of Dr. Esslinger and his department. Also our administrators and supervisors during the budgetary process. We recommend the approval of the FY 2021 budget as presented in the final document. Additionally, through our budget process, we presented and discussed budgets for federal programs or federal budgets, capital projects, food service, and MAC. We also recommend approval of those proposed budgets as presented during the work sessions.
Okay. I would like to move that we accept the 2021 budget as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, and discussion. I'll throw out this comment, Dr. Snowden. Dr. Esslinger, I know this was your first budget to have prepared for the district, and you did a phenomenal job. So I wanted everyone to be aware that the board appreciates your involvement in the budget. We'd like some of the formatting and modifications and explanations that you provided. Very well done. Thank you. Comments, questions? None? Okay, seeing none, it's our practice as we spend money to do roll call votes. So let's start on this end this time. Dr. Barker?
Alicia Barker, yes.
Alina Bell, yes.
Robert Blair, yes.
Tim Stillings, yes.
Robin Newman, yes.
Kevin Townsell, yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And the next item is to set the tax rate to fund that budget. Dr. Snowden?
Yes, once the 2021 budget have been approved, which you just did, a tax rate will need to be set forth for both the general purpose and the debt service budgets. The tax rate to fund the proposed budget is .6260 cents for the general purpose and .2030 cents for the debt service, for a total of .8290. As a reminder, this is the same combined rate as the 2019-2020 budget. In other words, no tax increase. We recommend approval.
And do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
And a second by Ms. Bell. Thank you very much. Discussion.
I just appreciate the hard work that put in, that we were able to maintain the same tax rate and still get done what we need to get done during these difficult times.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Prior to voting on a budget or a tax rate, Mr. Townsend and I have disclaimers that we would like to provide. Would you like to go first this year?
Yes, I feel comfortable voting on this, and that vote has nothing to do with the fact that my wife works in the district.
Thank you. My wife is also a teacher in the district, and my vote on this budget affects 600 and some odd other employees and every citizen in the city and the Franklin Special School District. So I feel comfortable I can vote my conscience. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's start at this end.
Kevin Townsell, yes.
Robin Newman, yes.
Tim Stillings, yes.
Robert Blair, yes.
Alina Bell, yes.
Alicia Barker, yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Guaranteed maximum pricing for the Performing Arts Center in the Poplar Grove Gymnasium. Dr. Snowden?
Yes, Nabholz Construction Services, our construction management at risk firm, has submitted the GMP for the new Performing Arts Center and the Poplar Grove Gymnasium. Their total GMP for the project is $26,880,820, which is 1.3% lower than the previous estimate. We are recommending their guaranteed maximum price as submitted in the July the 15th document that you have in front of you. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Esslinger to introduce and to have any other comments related to that.
Thank you, Dr. Snowden. Nabholz and our architectural firm, HFR, will now begin to engage in further analysis of the details of this bid documents to look for some potential savings through value engineering. So they'll engage in meetings over the next coming weeks to try to sharpen the pencil a little more. Mr. Adam Sider is here tonight from Nabholz. He's the project executive on this project. He's here with us tonight. Should you have any questions regarding the document or the project, he'd be glad to entertain those questions at this time.
Questions, comments for Dr. Esslinger or Adam? None? Okay. Adam, thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate it. Didn't recognize you with your mask on. There you are. Okay, we have we don't have a motion yet on the floor.
I'll make a motion that we approve this guaranteed maximum pricing for the Performing Arts and Poplar Grove Gymnasium.
Okay. There's a second. There's a second. Okay, discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll start in the middle this time, and we'll go this way. Tim Stillings, yes.
Robin Newman, yes.
Kevin Townsell, yes. Robert Blair, yes.
Alina Bell, yes.
Alicia Barker, yes.
Okay, thank you. Unanimous. Director of Schools performance goals for this upcoming school year, Mr. Townsell.
I'm going to take the next hour and a half going through. No, we're not going to do that. Hopefully you all have this in front of you. I'm just going to hit the high points that we changed. We did do a deep dive on this several years ago, and I think we have a document that we just tweaked now as we deem necessary. So of course, the dates change on the first page. On page 2, under improvement of student performance, minor changes here, but I think B captures the big one, having continued focus on providing device and access for students and teachers in the virtual learning environment. Of course, that wasn't necessary last year. It's necessary this year. We also retained further the opportunities for coding for all grade levels. And then the final point, E, utilize instructional coaches to the best of our ability for effective influence of student performance. On section 2, under the effective management of district resources, all we did there was, from the work session, we thought to put in work with the Board of Education to prioritize the list of capital improvements to be completed. Then if you move to Roman numeral 3, to execute on the district and the board's vision of excellence in teaching and learning for all. Under C, we struck the fact that it's a 3-year plan. Now in its second year, we struck all that. And then we thought it would be important to highlight something that we do under D, E, and F to continue to expand and develop programs, opportunities to enhance the social, emotional, and mental well-being of our students. E, continue efforts to recruit, hire, retain diverse and inclusive administrators, teachers, and staff. And F, continue professional development for teachers and administrators on strategies to develop culturally responsible teaching practices. When it came to the performance review summary, we kept that as is. Obviously, the most important thing is the improvement of student performance. That's going to stay the highest, so that's 35 points. Then we, as always, we like to say that effective management of district resources is our second most important thing. And then the final 2 tie, execute on the board's vision, the 20 points, and providing the highest level of internal and external communication, 20 points. And then in terms of the process, nothing had to be tweaked here. We made a good tweak last year, 1 sentence. So again, nothing had to be tweaked. So I think I hit the high points. Any questions about this or anything we leave out?
I just have a question to Dr. Snowden. Dr. Snowden, you've obviously reviewed this, and in the spirit of the true partnership and the relationship that the board enjoys with the director and vice versa, do you have any comments, questions, or is this perfectly acceptable to you?
It is acceptable. Mr. Townsend and I met and we worked through this, and then we also worked through it at the work session, so I'm very comfortable with these performance goals.
Okay, thank you. You're going to earn them this year. It's going to be a tough year, but okay.
With that, I'll make a motion that we accept the 2020-2021 Director of Schools Annual Performance Goals as just discussed.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Second. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Good job, Mr. Townsend. Dr. Snowden, thank you. Several new policies. Dr. Snowden.
Yes, first is a new policy, Homeschool 6.202. This is our second reading of this policy. Using the TSBA model policy as a guide, this policy is to provide direction for independent homeschool requirements for those students zoned for FSSD as required by the Tennessee Department of Education and current law. There were no changes requested by the board upon first reading. We recommend approval of the second reading.
I move we approve on second, and there is a second discussion. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Next, item 8, policy revision, reporting child abuse, 6.409. This is a first reading. Excuse me. TSBA Director of Policy and Staff Attorney recommends revising this policy to align with new law enacted by the General Assembly, and this goes into effect August 1st, which makes significant changes to several statutes that govern child abuse reporting requirements. Two of the most notable changes are, number one, the requirement to have one employee designated as a child abuse coordinator at each school, and number two, the prohibition against notifying parents, guardians when education officials suspect child abuse may have occurred. The name of the policy is also updated to reflect the content of the policy. We recommend approval of first reading.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve? Okay, Ms. Newman, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Bell? Discussion?
I just had a question as to who you think would be assigned as that person at each school. Would that typically fall to a certain type of person? The coordinator that has to be assigned at each school, would that be the guidance counselor or the nurse or?
You know, we've not decided on
Okay.
if it'll be the guidance counselor. We think that's probably the most appropriate person, but since the policy's on the first reading, we haven't decided. But that's the logical choice, is a guidance counselor.
Further questions, comments? Okay, let's call for a vote. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And that is rain. Okay, I just hadn't heard it in such a long time. Dr. Snowden.
Number 9, policy revision, student record 6.600. This is also a first reading. This revision requests updates legal and cross-references, as well as brings the policy up to current language. It is included in consideration of approval due to the request for deletion of the student records policy, which is on our agenda next, 6.603, which contains duplicate language. We recommend approval of the first reading.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to
Ms.
approve.
Bell, and I'll second. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Item number 10 is policy deletion. That's the use of record 6.603. This is also a first reading, excuse me, as stated for policy 6.600. This request for deletion is due to both policies containing the same language. We recommend approval of the first reading for deletion.
Okay, I move we approve on first, and Mr. Townsell's a second on that. Discussion?
Can we just pass this through since we're deleting the policy and not have a second reading? We don't have to do that, I'm just...
Okay, I don't see why not. Excuse me, therefore I modify my motion to include a waiver on second. Is that okay, Mr. Townsell? Okay. All right, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. Director of Schools report.
Yes, opening of school, which at this point, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we know our school opening when personnel are scheduled to return will look very different. Although we do have a speaker that day, personnel will be in their own schools so that social distancing will be observed. We will not have a partnership fair this year for the same reason. Following the opening, there will be professional learning occurring throughout the district. Included in learning that day and the following days is orientation on health protocols that will be strictly followed, as well as student learning methods and scheduling for our first days back. Second item is EQUIP. This is a new teacher induction program. Our new teachers will be in attendance on July the 28th through July the 30th. We look forward to the first year of this updated program as we begin the orientation and support program for our newest FSSD teachers. We're excited to welcome all to the FSSD family. The demographic report, please note that the report that you received this month is a general copy of May's report. However, updates include how many kindergarten applications have been processed and student movement as of the end of June. And then you have an update on conferences and meetings. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Snowden. Any comments, questions on that?
I just had a question. Regardless of where we are with our school opening plan, do we have a set date that we're having teachers come in for that first day and do the training and do the professional learning?
At this point, yes,
And what date is that?
I'm not looking at...
The 3rd, August 3rd?
The 3rd,
Okay.
August 3rd.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Updates, teaching and learning.
No, sir.
Okay. Finance.
You know I'm going to have an update, Mr. Stillings. Your packet contains the monthly HR reports and the financial reports. The revenue and expenditure reports provided final numbers for last fiscal year, 1920. July sales tax collections reflect a $55,000 decrease as compared to the same time period last year, but this was expected. This is 11.6% decrease compared to the same time previous year because of the fact that the entire month of April we were sitting at home. So that was an expected decrease, and it's not as much as it could have been. However, the good news is that we have exceeded the projected budgeted revenues for the year of 1920 by $78,000. So at the end of the day, we were right on projections.
Excellent. Questions on finance? Any other announcements? Okay, we have a Return to Learn program approved. We have a budget approved. Let's come out swinging. Meeting's adjourned.